Hi there. So, before it occurred to me that I should go ahead and try to record one of my coaching sessions, I had sat down with this worker and negotiated that her goal for the coaching session was she was debating whether to return children to the mom's care, and she had and I'd asked her to clarify a little bit more, and she felt like there were a lot of complicating factors swirling around the case, and she wanted help separating what was actually harm and related to the harm statement or the danger statement, and which things were complicating factors. So it helps at the very beginning of this recorded video to know that I had already had that conversation with her about what the goal was that she wanted to accomplish. All right, so before I ran off to make photocopies, we talked about what it was you were hoping to accomplish, and that is trying to figure out return, stay in foster care, and we agreed that you and your supervisor would make the decision.
Yes.
We're just going to review your thinking. We're going to think critically about how focused you are on the issues. So here's what I'd like for you to do. Take this blank sheet of paper, and rather than do the whole mapping thing, let's just list out the things that would be in the what we're worried about column.
Okay.
We might do the working well in a minute, but
Okay.
since you're interested in kind of getting clarity about what's harm versus what's complicating factors, let's just focus on that for a little while. Okay? So let's start your list. What are some things that you're currently, that would just go in that what we're worried about column? And maybe start with the original harm that happened.
Well, that was mother and father were involved in domestic violence, and they were in public when someone witnessed father grabbing mom while she was holding the baby. So the baby getting harmed, yes, while in mom's arms.
And when they reported the rest of sort of he grabbed her, what else behaviorally did they describe?
Well, they said dad was pretty aggressive, was yelling at mom, was being very verbally abusive, using derogatory terms, profanity.
Okay.
Mom was very silent.
Okay.
Mom didn't respond back, kind of just stood there and took it.
Okay.
And the baby seemed afraid. I'm sure, as evidence, Potty was crying.
How old?
The baby was
Just
about
roughly.
2 months. Was about 2 months at
Pretty
that
little.
time. Yeah.
Okay. Very vulnerable.
Yeah.
And when he grabbed her, did he shake her, throw her to the ground? Just say, you better
my
listen to
understanding, kind
me?
of just grabbed her and kind of like tugged her, pulled her
Dragged her.
close.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Toward him.
So let's certainly write that down. Mother and father began, witnesses reported. I was delighted to come in here and see this on the board. So,
Oh.
witnesses in public.
Okay.
Again, they must have just done that class recently, because
Yes.
I didn't put that up there. That's awesome. Okay. So that's the original reason that we got involved.
Yes.
And I think it'd be easy for us to go to the danger statement. That is, we're afraid that they're going to fight some more.
Yes.
Right. Okay. So now, what else is like come to light recently? That what else was maybe harmful or complicating back in the day?
This case originally started in Los Angeles County. Once parents went to court, both father and mother were offered services. The child was remained in mother's care on family maintenance,
Okay.
under the condition that she lived with maternal grandmother, who also resides in Los Angeles County.
Okay.
Mother agreed to that, and she moved in. However, she moved out without notifying the social worker. And so the social worker found out that happened, and the child was removed from mother's care. And
Okay.
she, both mother and father at that time were offered family reunification services.
And was that all in Los Angeles?
And that was all in Los Angeles.
Okay.
Um,
So, would you also be worried if mom moved out of the house when that was part of her safety plan?
yes. Okay.
It's an action,
Okay.
right?
Yes.
It's an action that mom took. It's a behavior.
So I feel it was a part of the safety plan, but it was also the condition of the court for her to keep the child with her.
Right, so there might be, you might want to like put a little parentheses. Let's see, mother
that's okay.
moved out of maternal ground, which was part of the safety plan. Oh,
And condition for.
and I would maybe say court
Court
ordered.
ordered, okay.
So she violated the court order. Now, if she moved out of maternal grandmother's home, but moved into a convent, right,
Yes.
with a lot of nuns around to help care for the child,
Yes.
and it's gated and
Yeah.
has cameras, and no one could get in to hurt her, maybe we might
Might be
feel
okay.
different about it, right?
Yes,
But
yes.
so where did she move to?
She moved to San Bernardino into an apartment, what she said was on her own. We later found out that wasn't true. She moved in with the father of the baby, even though they weren't supposed to be together. He was being offered initially family reunification services, and she was offered family maintenance services, so they weren't supposed to be spending time together. Just because of the services that were being offered. So mom knew that she was not to be with the father because one, he wasn't, it wasn't a part of his plan, and two, he was not participating in the services that were recommended, such as domestic violence.
Okay, so I think part of this number, part of this too here is, and it was to the father's apartment in San Bernardino. Okay. Mother lying about whether she was financially independent doing this move versus dependent on the father for paying the rent or
In this
creating-
case, it's the opposite. Mother has developmental delays, and so she gets SSI. And so she's the one who's paying for the apartment. And I think part of why just my opinion, I think she's been used to taking care of father, paying the bills, and because he had nowhere to go, she was now ordered to stay with mom, her mother. He no longer has anywhere to go, and I think that is why, part of the reason why she moved out of mom's home, because she felt the need to provide housing for dad.
Okay. So why don't we list that? Mom has developmental delays. Let's do that separately. How would you word kind of the bumper sticker for she feels like she's supposed to take care of the father? Are they married?
They're not married.
Not married. So, father of the baby, what, like, I know it could be that just her behavior makes it apparent that that's how she feels on the inside, but is there anything else behaviorally that, or anything she said that makes you think she feels obligated to take care of this guy?
I think just the lying, the denying that she's, as of last week, I went to visit her in the home,
Mm-hmm.
and she never said he lived there. She said he's visited, and she said he comes by to bring me money. He does not work, and I've been informed that she's been the one with the income the entire time they've been involved in a relationship. So I think just by her not saying he's lived with me, she's never admitted that he's lived with her since she's moved out of her mom's home.
Okay.
She's always said that she's lived alone, and he's visited every once in a while here and there, and at times would bring her money. I don't think she's
So just write that all out.
okay.
Sort of, mom claims X, and that dad visits, and brings her money, and we found out it ain't necessarily so. What else? What else are you possibly worried about? What would go in that worry column?
This probably should have been number one for she's currently pregnant. And I'm concerned that what has happened with the current child is going to happen again with this unborn child. Because it doesn't seem that, with mom not even being honest about what's going on, or even her involvement with the father,
Mm-hmm.
nothing is being addressed. The domestic abuse hasn't been addressed, I don't think, because she's not even willing to admit that he's still a part of her life. And from what the maternal grandmother is saying, when mom comes to visit the current child at her home, she gets into arguments on the phone and becomes visibly upset and agitated and irritated and frustrated with the father. So it seems as though they have not learned how to communicate in a positive way. They're still having the same issues that may lead to what initially caused us to be here.
Right. So, currently pregnant.
Not being truthful about her involvement.
Well, let's try to describe it behaviorally.
Okay.
She says X,
Okay.
and then I find out Y or Z or something. Because when I think when you're in this case, you know, when's your next court hearing?
We just had one, so it's in January.
So okay. It's useful in court reports, rather than just say that mom has been deceitful.
Mm-hmm.
It's helpful to say, on such and such a date, mom reported X.
Okay.
On such and such a date, grandma reported they were on the phone arguing about who was going to empty the dishwasher.
Okay.
Right?
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yes, that makes sense.
Or who left the dirty dishes in the sink.
There's a screaming child out there
Yes.
in the lobby.
An unhappy child.
I was up in Victorville yesterday, and I swear it sounded like someone was beating the child out in the visitation center, and peeked my eye, looked out. No, they were just having a tantrum, but man, they were loud.
It drew your attention. And I believe she said they were discussing, Mom was upset that Dad would not come home because she was spending the weekend with Mom. So
So you have some content about
yes,
So can
their
you-
interaction.
You can quote Grandma about that?
Yes.
He wasn't coming home, like he was just gonna go out and party or
He was
play?
gonna he wasn't gonna go home because Mom is not there, to make sure that he did come home. So she was arguing with him about
Gotcha.
not going to the house.
Did you include in this write-up about grandmother reporting that she gets agitated and frustrated and maybe yells at him over the phone, or behaviorally specific what she looks and sounds like on the phone? Okay. What else would go under your column list of worries?
According to Grandmother, when this happens, it transfers into Mom's interaction with the children. When she's upset, after being on a phone call with Dad, she's not as comforting and not as involved with the kids because she's upset. So she normally wants to just walk off, stand off by herself, go sit in a room by herself, leave the home, and not interact with the children at all.
Okay. Well, that's an impact on the child. So let's somehow describe that following this, mother is unable to respond to the children's needs, she's unable to assume the parental role. Well, or just describe it like Grandma does. She's less comforting, she walks away. All of which could be appropriate things for a parent to
Yeah.
do when they're upset,
Yeah.
but, well, I'll get to the other piece in a minute. Okay, what else? You mentioned earlier there was something you've learned recently.
Oh, what I did learn was that he's living in the home. I went to the home last week and I had no indication. There was absolutely no indication in the home that he was staying there. None. And so when I spoke with Grandma, she said, well, when you come, she knows you're coming, so she makes sure, one, he's not there, and two, whatever is in the home that belongs to him has been removed. So Mom is going to extensive lengths to hide the fact that he is still in the home, that he is in the home. I didn't even know that they were living together. She has never said to me that they lived together since she's been living in San Bernardino.
And how long ago did she move here?
They moved, she moved to San Bernardino around January of this year.
Oh, so quite a while.
Yeah, has been quite a while.
And when did the transfer to this county?
The transfer came in around February.
And
At the time, father's whereabouts were said unknown, because that's what mother had reported, that she had no idea of his whereabouts. And when I spoke with her, she told me the exact thing. She said in the beginning he used to come by and visit, but after a while he disappeared and she had no idea where he was.
so if the grandmother was here, what evidence would she cite? How would she say she knows that this guy is actually living with her daughter?
Because grandmother takes the kids, she has an older daughter who's not a part of CFS. She takes both of the kids to her home, to mother's home on the weekends. And he is there.
Every time she shows
Every
up for a
time she
weekend
shows up,
visit,
he's there.
he's there.
He's there. When she comes out at times to visit mom, because they switch, sometimes mother will go to grandmother
Yeah.
and grandmother will come to mom. Father is there every single time.
Okay, so here where you've got mother says that father's not there, grandmother describes the arguing. Why don't you add there, whenever grandma shows up, the father is in the home. And then maybe it'd be useful to know how often that is. Like, is that every other month? Is that every other week? So every other week. Okay. What else?
The child has severe allergies that requires an extensive amount of medical care.
Okay.
And grandma reports when mom comes to visit, she's not willing to learn what's necessary to care for this child. The specific needs, he has to drink a certain formula. There's certain foods only certain foods he can eat. If he's allergic to anything, he would throw up extensively, and mom doesn't seem to know what to do or care to learn what to do. When grandma tries to explain to her and show her, you need to do X, Y, and Z when this happens.
Okay.
She's not interested.
Well, let's write that down.
Let's say it's grandmother.
So this is mostly food, reflux,
Yes.
stuff
yes,
like that.
Yes.
Probably not going to kill the child, right? But it could be, like if I was trying to grade or assess mom's quality of visitation, the fact that she's not responding to his medical needs, she wouldn't get a high grade.
No.
That's for sure. Do you happen to have the date of the removal? From mom when she moved out and Los Angeles removed?
It says here
You know what, just roughly.
June of 2013, June 13th, June maybe 10th.
Wow. So we're past a year
Yeah.
from removal.
Yeah.
Was it the 12 month
Yes.
that just went by?
Yes.
Okay. So let's switch gears.
Okay.
Let's talk about anything that you would put in the what's working well column.
What's working on? I would say for mom, she calls me to let me know what's going on when she plans on visiting, um, how she's doing in her classes.
She is attending classes?
She is attending classes. She's attending parenting classes and individual therapy.
Okay, but not victim of domestic violence group?
That's a component of the individual therapy. She's not, the case plan didn't ask for a specific, a class
Treatment
by itself,
modality.
no. It's a
And it could be
part.
if she's developmentally delayed, even though group process is kind of the preferred method for victims of
Yes.
domestic violence, could be that cognitively she wouldn't benefit as well from that, I don't know. But be that as it may. Okay, so she's compliant with services, and let's list those: parenting and individual therapy, which is not the same as acts of protection.
No.
But it's, we would put it in the working well column.
She visits regularly.
Well, you led off with, she calls me.
Yes.
Now, she might not always be truthful,
Yeah,
but at least she's calling.
calling.
She's
Exactly.
calling and
I
telling you
think
what's going on.
That says a lot.
So, well, let's list it at least.
Okay.
Whether it says a lot or a little. She calls to fill you in or inform. Well, or activities, it sounded more like, okay, I'm going to visit it this day.
Exactly.
Okay, I missed a class or
Yes,
whatever,
yes.
stuff like that. Are you getting any reports from the parenting class and the?
I have not
therapy?
received any as yet. I believe I've received so far just the initial, she's made an appointment
Intake.
for this date, yes, and she's shown up to the intake.
Okay.
But as far as how she's doing, I have not received a progress report as yet.
Okay, what else would you put?
The visits, she's visiting regularly.
Okay, so the frequency and the scheduling, she schedules and she shows up.
Yes,
Quality
not so much.
is over here on this other column, but let's go ahead and put the scheduling, frequency, and actually showing up, she's consistent. Okay, what else would you put in the working well column?
I want to say she wants what's best for the child. I'm not sure if she knows how to go about that, but I think there's an underlying fact that she truly cares for this child.
Okay. And so behaviorally, what does she say or what does she do that leads you to believe that she cares about the best interest of this child?
She says that she loves her child. She says that regularly.
Okay,
You know,
we'll write that down. That's behavior. What else behaviorally indicates to you that that's?
She's also mentioned that she's aware of his special needs, and if it turns out that she cannot be reunified with him, she would love for this child to be adopted by her parents.
So she's willing to talk about concurrent
Yes.
planning.
Yes.
And has identified a potential. 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 And has identified a potential permanent placement for her child. How old is this mom?
She's young. She's like in her early 20s, maybe like 23,
Mm-hmm. How old is the father?
42.
42.
I'm sorry, can I go?
Yeah, of course.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right. Just,
Someone in the office is calling. Can I just go?
yes, of course, of course, of course. So we were going down our list of what's working well. What else would you potentially put on this column?
Mom, I don't know, I guess in some ways she appears independent. She's living on her own,
Mhm.
and she's attending school,
Okay.
and she's covering her bills
Okay.
on her own.
Well, let's put that down. What else? Yep, you have a very involved maternal grandmother who's
Yes.
caring for this child.
Caring for this child and her other child.
So this same mom has an older child who has been living with grandmother.
Since birth. They have legal guardianship of her.
Okay.
Wanted to adopt her, but it was too costly.
Mm.
So
Okay. Like, how would you assess the relationship between mom and grandmother?
I definitely get that grandmother and grandfather loves mom. I think they're a little guarded. And I think they're more so. I'm not sure what word I'm looking for it. They don't feel that mom has done enough or has shown enough interest in not just this child, but her older child. She's not parenting enough.
Mm-hmm,
And so I think they're afraid of mom being left alone with the kids.
Okay, so under the worries, looks like we need to start another page. Under the worries, you could say that the grandparents are concerned that mom would be neglectful if the children were in her care. And then on this other page, you could go back to, they love her, they seem to know her really well. And they're supportive. Okay. You know, we've talked a lot about the mom.
I know nothing about the dad. I'm supposed to meet with him today because now that I know he exists, I've made contact and I've asked for him to come and meet with me.
Okay.
Just so I can find out. I know nothing but what the grandmother have said, what the mother have said, and what the reports have
Okay.
said. I know nothing, you know.
Okay. And so one concern over here is he knows his baby is in an open child welfare case, and he has yet to reach out to you.
Yeah.
Now, the fact that you tracked him down is good social work, okay? So let's just be clear about that. Okay. So I'd like to shift gears a little bit, okay? So you've got this harm statement.
Yes.
Let's write above that, just briefly, a danger statement, so you know why you got involved.
Mhm.
Explain to me why you need to stay involved in the form of a danger statement.
I don't know. Mother and father is still interacting with each other.
Well, CFS, grandparents, well, let's just go with, and maybe mom, I don't know if she's worried or, is she worried that her baby could be exposed to a violent episode again?
I don't think she.
Or have you ever, maybe you haven't had that conversation with her?
We haven't had that conversation simply because she still has not acknowledged that he is living with her.
Well,
so I think when
She doesn't so she doesn't have to be truthful about that
Mhm.
in order to be involved with crafting a danger statement and a safety goal,
Okay.
okay?
Okay.
She can be in denial.
Okay.
And given what the harm was, if we asked her, if she happened to be in the room with us, who knows? She might say, yeah, I'm worried about that too.
Okay.
That's why I didn't bring my child, that's why I didn't abduct my child from my mom's house.
Okay.
Because I was certainly willing to violate the other court order
Yeah.
and move out.
That's true.
Okay? So let's at least put CFS, because that's you, and the grandparents
Okay.
are worried. And then I wonder if this says it's out of memory now. Is that what happened here? Oh no. I wish I could turn off. Okay, so they're worried that mother and father, now everybody argues, every couple argues, right? But what's the behavior that got us involved?
Dad becoming physically aggressive.
Well, he assaulted her.
Yeah.
I mean, aggressive is maybe posturing,
Yeah.
but when you lay hands on someone,
He actually did
the,
assault her.
the penal code then says that
It's
becomes an
assault.
assault,
Okay.
all right? Or maybe it's battery or some, well, one of those. So you're worried that the father will physically assault the mom again.
Yes.
Again, and the child could be injured or die. We're up in the ante a little bit here, because we want to try to get mom's attention. So when you think back to the modules, right? After we craft these here in the office, kind of what do you remember as being the next step?
A safety plan?
Really, the next step is to get these into language that
Okay.
mom and father can agree to,
Okay.
and that they understand.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's a conversation around, let's map out together why we got involved, why we're still involved, and how would we know that we could let your children back in your home or get out of your life or whatever.
Okay.
Which brings me to the next sheet of paper. At the top of this, let's craft a potential safety goal.
Okay.
So remember, safety goals need to be sort of mirror images of the danger statement about what we're worried about.
Okay.
So we're not going to put that that she needs to complete college. We're not going to put that she needs to do parenting
Mhm.
class. We're not going to put that their relationship needs to become like a textbook
Mhm.
example of perfect harmony.
Okay.
Okay? Because that's
Possible.
because that's not the harm statement. I mean, the danger statement has to do with them arguing and father being physically assaultive.
Okay.
So let's think about a safety goal.
Okay.
Who would mom need to demonstrate? Mom will demonstrate to who?
To CFS, to grandmother.
So let's start with that. Mom will demonstrate, or even parents.
Yeah. I should
Yeah,
say.
because we're in that father engagement
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
We don't
She
want
should be a part of this.
absolutely.
I wish she had been.
So parents will demonstrate to who?
CFS. To grandparents.
And who knows? Maybe in parentheses you could put maybe and each other, or
I was thinking.
who?
I was thinking separating it, mom demonstrating it to father, because she's the victim. So I think she needs to show him that she is willing to take the necessary steps to protect the kids and show him that she's willing to do that.
So I think those necessary steps are that I think breaking out what mom's going to do and then what dad's going to do could be part of the plan that you develop later.
Okay.
But in the
So put-
biggest scheme of things,
Just each other.
okay, we'll do that. That what? What is it that they need to demonstrate?
That they will not be physically assaultive to each other.
So if we put a dead person in the corner of the room, could they demonstrate that they were not assaultive to somebody else?
No.
Oh yeah, they could. They could just sit there. They wouldn't assault anybody.
So we need.
So we need
action.
something that they need to do.
They would. Are we talking about specific things they will be doing in the moment if something were to arise?
Well, I think you could put what they do in the moment as part of the plan down
Okay.
here, but the goal is this bigger thing that relates back to the harm statement. I mean, the danger statement.
Protect the children. They will.
So we know they're going to argue.
Mhm.
What do they need to do when they argue?
Um, refrain from getting physical?
Well, they need to settle the argument.
Okay.
Like if they're going to work together and they're going to parent, if they're going to live in the same house, right? Or they're going to be together, then when they have differences, they need to resolve those differences.
Because, as you mentioned before, there's nothing wrong with arguing.
That's
I
right.
think it's when it's taken to that other level, when the arguments get escalated and maybe you're in each other's faces,
That's
and
right.
then that turns to maybe a push, and that turns to a bigger push. And
Yes, it does.
then a swing, and then contact,
Right,
a punch to
Right.
the head or something.
right. So I think it would be unrealistic to tell a couple that they could never argue.
Yes.
But they need to resolve the argument
Okay.
in ways that never involve a physical assault.
Okay.
That's kind of how that's a starting point, I think, that's good to go with, because it's got an action,
Mm-hmm.
and our stake in the ground, the thing that we can't really negotiate about is that whatever's going on can't ever get past this stake, and that stake is the physical assault.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
So let's try that.
Okay.
That they will resolve their disagreements or arguments.
Without physical contact?
Well, or just in ways.
Okay.
Like there's a lot of different ways. He could walk out the door
Okay.
and stonewall. They won't stay together very long,
Yeah.
but he could do that.
Okay.
There's all these other ways. So in ways that never involve
Physical.
a physical assault. And like assault might be too hard for mom, or that might sound too jargony for them. So she might say, well, we need to do it without you ever touching me,
Okay.
something like that.
So touching. No touching.
Not during the argument.
Not touching, just not doing arguments. 'Cause
We
those
know
aren't
they're
touches,
touching
yes.
because she's pregnant again.
Exactly. But during the arguments, those aren't positive
Right,
touches.
right. So what's your reaction to that draft of a safety goal? How does that fit for you in this case, you think?
I think this fits very well.
So if they could demonstrate this, let's say for a number of months, when you walked in the door here, you were kind of on the cusp of recommending return.
Yes.
And what was,
I think prior to me getting the information that I got yesterday, I was thinking more family maintenance return, because the grandmother for the last 6 months, her focus was on the fact that mom was not interacting with the child and addressing the child's special needs.
Okay.
And that was, she never really talked much about, at all, about the fact that mom was still involved with this guy. She never did that. So it wasn't until yesterday that she said, okay, I'm going to come clean with you. I know she hasn't been honest with you. I don't want to, lie.
Okay.
So let me tell you exactly what's been going on. He's been living with her this entire time. When she comes to visit, part of the reason why she's not interacting with the kids, or when she does interact with them, it's on
It's
a
'cause she's
negative
arguing,
level.
yeah.
It's because she's arguing with him.
okay, so I'm going to
So it took a spin, and
So I'm going to throw something at you. I'm going to throw something at you that's going to feel a little weird, okay? But under the column of what's working well, all right,
okay,
deceit takes planning and forethought.
okay,
And the mom has been successfully deceiving you
mhm,
and planning for when you're going to visit
yes,
since you had the case,
yes,
which means she is capable of planning.
yes. Okay.
Let's put it down.
Okay.
I know that's like a what?
It's like a weird, but I like it though.
But it's a reframe
it makes
on
sense. Yes.
her behavior, right?
Yes.
And I'll let you finish writing. Okay, capable of planning. yeah, and following through too, right?
Yeah.
Because I create all kinds of plans for myself to get to the gym, and then I don't
It
follow
just
through.
happens.
So now I just want you to think about this for a second. If mom and dad both knew that this is the goal they needed to demonstrate, and mom is a planner and is able to follow through on what she plans, then she and her therapist would be able to do more planning for how mom is to react. And who knows, we don't know the dad very well, but if he's more within the normal IQ range, right, he may get that, the trick is, I just need to walk out of the door when I'm so irritated I want to slap her. You see what I'm saying?
Okay.
This also gives you an opportunity to start asking him exception questions
Okay.
about near misses, like when is the time you were really upset with mom? And I have a solution-focused handout I'll give
Okay.
you too. When's the time that you were really upset with mom and you really felt tempted to pull her, push her, shove her, hit her, whatever, and you did something different?
Okay.
Versus, what are some good times that you and mom spend together?
Okay.
What are some things about this relationship? I mean, he's a 42-year-old dude knocking up a 20-something girl, developmentally delayed. So I'm not quite sure what you're going to get there, but it'll be diagnostic.
Okay.
Okay? Whatever. It could be, when we're on my Harley and we're cruising down the freeway and she's on the back, that is just so awesome. I don't know what he'll come up with. But you can ask the near-miss exception questions, and you can ask the bigger questions about when are some times that you guys get along and don't argue for extended periods of time, or you argue and you never have a physical altercation. Who knows? Maybe they only argue on the phone now.
Okay.
And that would be a way to settle disagreements
Okay.
that doesn't involve physical violence, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So, okay. So we don't have a time frame yet on this safety goal. So let's think through that.
Okay.
Okay? How many modules have you had a chance to
I
participate in?
believe I've done up to 4.
Okay. So I think later on, maybe when did you do this module on harm and danger? in
No,
Safety goals? You
no, I
haven't done
signed
that?
up for it and I
Okay.
had a last minute.
Okay,
decision,
so I'll
but
do.
I'm going next month.
We'll do a little in-service real quick here.
Okay.
So when we want to write safety goals in ways that show how many months or how many weeks or what period of time we want to see this behavior happen before we would consider whatever the next step is.
Okay.
If it's supervised visits, it's unsupervised visits.
Okay.
If it's unsupervised visits, maybe it's planning to return home with overnights.
Okay.
If it's already overnights, maybe it's recommending to the court family maintenance.
Okay.
So, okay?
Okay.
So whatever that time frame is. Which brings me to, remember the Cheryl case in like module 1 where the lady was going to commit suicide and she
Yes.
put her kids in the
Yes.
other, and then put the
Had her do-
towels,
yes.
turn on the gas?
Yes.
Okay. So the harm that those kids could have suffered if if somebody hadn't noticed the gas is that the whole apartment could have blown up and they would be dead.
Yeah.
Okay? The reason I asked earlier about the harm, and so when the witnesses talk about dad grabbing her, if he's grabbing her and just sort of pulling her along, that's different than punching her in the face or grabbing her and throwing her to the ground.
Yes.
Because there's just a lot more danger to an infant that's being thrown to the ground
Yes.
than there is somebody who's being drugged.
Yes.
It's not a lot. It's a fine distinction,
Yes.
but anyway.
That is fine.
But this baby could have fallen and cracked her skull.
Yes.
Right? So that's a good reason for us to get involved.
Yes.
But now we need to think about the risk of reoccurrence.
Okay.
Okay? How likely do we think it is that this situation is going to replicate itself? So in the Cheryl case, she had never had any prior referrals. She had successfully addressed her depression in the past. She had gotten restraining order against an abusive father of the children and separated from him.
Mm-hmm.
And she was willing to enlist a network of people and be accountable to them to come check her depression
Mhm.
and check on whether or not she was reaching out if she was feeling depressed.
Okay.
Okay? So in the Cheryl case, the actual probability that this was going to reoccur was only moderate.
Okay.
Okay? And so in that particular case, those kids back in Massachusetts went home within 6 months.
Okay.
Okay? In this case, let's talk about how many times has mom been referred for a similar harm?
She's been referred in LA County, I believe, within months of the actual removal.
Mhm.
Once, maybe twice, where an investigation was done because of someone reporting hearing things in the home.
Okay.
And so an investigation was done, I believe, 2 prior times, but children were not removed. It was a third time when it was done out in public that the children.
And there was a
were
witness to the,
someone,
to
exactly.
the physical. Okay. What other kinds of referrals?
Those were it.
Those were it.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's not a lot of referrals.
No.
And it's one acute instance that caused the removal. Mom, now if you think about the CAT, Comprehensive Assessment Tool, so it's going to ask a question about mom's disabilities.
Yes.
And you're going to have to mark yes on that, and that's going to maybe bump up
Yes.
the risk of it happening again. Was mom raised in foster care? Was she ever removed herself?
Yes. Her parents are her adoptive parents.
Oh.
Yeah.
See, that's why we do the genogram,
Yeah.
so that I know this kind of stuff. Okay, we didn't do that. That's all right. We're in good shape. So these are adoptive parents. So mom was removed. That raises that probability a little bit more. Father's child welfare history.
He had no prior, from my recollection. This was his first.
But okay, so when you look at the juris dispo or the detention report, you don't.
No,
there's
there
not a lot of-
weren't any priors, no.
And so this is an interesting point. There are no priors,
No priors.
and does he have other children that he raised?
He does have other children that he raised. I don't know much about it because I believe Grandma was the one that mentioned something, that she's aware of adult kids, but
Okay,
I don't have any information. That's all she knew.
okay. So we might add, this was our worries, continue. We might add, we've already got mom's developmental delay. Let's go ahead and put on here that she was adopted. She was removed from her biological parents and adopted. I would put also under worries 2 prior referrals that were closed, that were not promoted as cases, but show a pattern of this arguing. In my home county, we have the ability to ask the police for a calls for service
Okay.
list. And they can tell us for a given address, how many times have they had to show up at that address to
Okay.
quell. That might be useful
Okay.
for you to get.
Okay.
Because if it's very, very low, then maybe they're actually doing this.
Okay.
If it's very, very high, then it
Then-
becomes on the concern column. Okay, so all of this is to say, I don't know what to tell you to put for the months.
Okay.
So why don't we, on your safety goal, why don't you put, they will demonstrate this for, and then a blank, months before we would consider return. And then you and your supervisor can figure that out a little bit.
Okay.
Before you would consider whatever the next step is. Does she have unsupervised visits? Or
She
they
has
have-
unsupervised visits, but it's at the grandmother's home, and the children's council ordered that because grandmother had made reports that when she was there, she wasn't interacting with the kids, she wasn't bonding with them, and so she felt it would be unsafe for her to have unsupervised contact outside of the home where she can get.
Because the quality of the visits
Yeah,
is not
yeah.
all that high. Okay. So before family night. Okay. All right. So in service of figuring out this number, can I pitch a couple of questions
Yeah.
to maybe fill in? Father, where are your kids, and how much did you raise them?
That's a good one.
On a scale of 0 to 10, 10 being you raised them as a single parent and they were with you the entire time they were children. 0, you got a girl pregnant, left, and, was never involved. Where would he put himself on that 0 to 10 scale?
They were not involved. No involvement. Fully
Raised them,
involved.
yeah, raised them.
Raised to
Raised to
adulthood.
adulthood. Okay. I think another excellent question would be, what are ways that you guys currently settle disagreements and arguments? And you could also ask, historically, who has he been involved with in the past?
As far as in a relationship?
Yeah, what partners and relationships has he been involved in the past with? So I'm kind of thinking about the cat.
Okay.
I know one of the questions on there is, do we suspect substance abuse?
Okay.
And I'd be curious about, the police report from when we were moved. Were either of them under the influence of anything?
I know she wasn't, I'm not sure about him, I would have to double check.
Okay. Now, can you see how inviting this father to tell you any success stories he's had with being a father in the past, and asking the both of them, how do you currently succeed at settling arguments, right? And maybe when you guys get along, really well what's going on.
What does that look like?
What does that look
Okay.
like? That those are going to be easier ways to engage a client
Okay.
in conversation than launching with, why are you people are lying to me about where you're living? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And why have you not shown up for the last 12 months, you deadbeat? Papa, you.
We'll do that.
I'm glad you don't do that.
I don't. I
But-
really want to know about this guy. I'm like, just glad that he surfaced.
Good,
So,
yeah, you're just curious
Yeah.
and wanna,
Yeah.
okay. And that's I mean, you know, that's a good sort of orientation to have as you approach this. But, so let's go back to this long column of worries. This is it, right?
Yes.
So let's go through and think about, so which of these is actually potentially harmful to the
Okay.
child, and which ones are just complicating factors?
Okay.
Let's start with the bottom.
Okay.
So 2 prior referrals.
Promoted cases that show pattern of behavior. Would that be a complicating factor?
I think
Because
you
it
could
was
go. I
just-
think it could go either way. Why don't we
Okay.
put a question mark next to it, just so that you know that I'm on the fence about
Yeah.
that one. What about the next one? Mother was removed.
Complicating factor.
Put a CF there. What's the next one?
Complicating factor.
What is it?
Father knows that child is in open
Oh,
safety
yeah,
space, but
okay,
has yet to
okay.
contact. Grandparents are afraid that mother will be neglectful if left alone with the children. That one I'm kind of on the fence with as well. Because so far she hasn't shown,
Mm-hmm.
she hasn't done enough to make them feel comfortable with that,
Mhm.
but it doesn't necessarily mean that she's not gonna do, she hasn't been given the opportunity.
She hasn't raised either one of her children yet.
No.
Let's put a question mark. And I'll tell you why. Because, frequency and follow-through on the scheduled visits
Mhm.
is an important factor. The quality of those visits, whether they assume the parental role.
Mhm.
Do they put the child's needs ahead of their own? Do they respond to verbal and nonverbal cues? Can they show empathy for the child? There's a fifth one that's escaping me right now. But so there's some good things to think about during the visits to figure out how quality the visits are, and the fact that they're not high quality. I think minor's attorney is maybe appropriately.
Yes. And I do
Skittish.
think with grandma giving me the information she did yesterday, it does explain a lot of why, I don't know. In the beginning, grandmother made it seem as though mom just had an issue with bonding. And we kind of talked about, well, if she's never been given the opportunity to bond, her first child, you guys took legal guardianship at a very young age, and this child was removed at 2 months. I think it takes time to learn those things. For some people, it doesn't come that easily.
Okay, so I'll tell you what, let's do this. Because like the safety goal, outlining for parents what are quality visitation criteria and having it be in black and white often helps them up their game.
Okay.
Okay, so let's put an asterisk here.
Okay.
And then down here, let's put another asterisk. Okay, and so let's put, assume the parental role. And that kind of means, if a child is climbing on something unsafe, you step in and
Yeah.
help. If they're beating up another kid, you help set limits on their behavior. Putting the child's needs ahead of your own is the next one. This one would also be involved with knowing about the food allergies and caring enough to address it.
Okay, should I just add that?
Well, I'm trying to give you some
That's
examples.
okay.
Okay. Put the Chelsea's in. Respond to verbal and nonverbal cues. Have developmentally appropriate expectations. So a parent needs to know what is a 1-year-old capable of in terms of behavior and responding, what is a 5-year-old
Yes.
capable of, what is a 10-year-old capable of. That's the fifth one that I couldn't remember a minute ago. And demonstrate that you can show empathy for your child. Now that one is largely misunderstood. A lot of times people think that's just being encouraging or giving a kid a hug or stuff like that. That's just parental role in my book. Empathy is actually being able to watch a child, understand what feeling they're having, anger, happiness, boredom, whatever, and why they're having it.
Okay.
You don't have to fix it.
Yeah.
If you told them, hold on to the balloon, and they let go and the helium balloon flies off into the sky, showing empathy is just, you know what, I can tell that you're really sad about losing your balloon.
Yeah.
That's all that is.
Okay.
Is being able to, and I'm telling you, we have clients that cannot do this.
We have non-clients.
We have non-clients.
I've seen that.
We have a lot of parents that will say, if you had let me tie it around your wrist like I said, then it wouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
That's not it. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
And even and so part of the parental role would be to console.
So I got to the end of the clip that I was recording with my iPhone, and it just ran out of battery. So you didn't get to see the last part of the coaching session. I did go over the feedback questionnaire and talked about what skills she had worked on, and she identified actually separating harm in the worries from complicating factors in the worries. And we talked about identifying case drift. Quality of care for the child is, it's an important thing she can't ignore. But she felt much better about having some separation in her mind about the two different issues. And in terms, she didn't have anything that she thought could be improved or changed. And when I asked her what was most helpful about the coaching session, she said that giving her time to read each item and mark it as harm or complicating factor was the best thing for her, in addition to being able to separate out that the grandmother's concerns about the quality of care is important enough to pay attention to, and it is not what the original protective issue or the original harm was. So she's going to figure out ways to put both of those things into the case plan going forward, and to discuss both of those things with the mom. I'm really bummed that it quit early, but the phone just ran out of battery.